We are going to be talking about greatness. Everybody wants to be great. Everybody wants to be remembered for a life that meant something, for a life of greatness. This was no different for the disciples of Jesus' time. This is a feeling of humanity that lasts all throughout every time period. People want to be great. As we continue our study on James, this is evident in the life of James. Last week, we talked about James, John, and Peter's calling to Christ, and Christ calling them to follow him. And today, what we're going to dive into is we're going to dive into this idea of greatness, where James and John talk to Jesus about what it means to be great. And so as we dive into this study today, this is found in two different areas in the Bible. It's found in Mark 10:35 through 45 and Matthew 20:20 through 28. Today we're going to be in Matthew 20:20 through 28. But really quick, it would be wrong of us not to talk about the differences in these stories. Let's put it that way. There's a very big difference in the story that Mark records and the story that Matthew records. And the difference is an entire character. Mark records that James and John ask Jesus a question, okay? Then Matthew records that the mother of James and John asks a question. This is a big difference, and a lot of people struggle with that. This is a huge contradiction in the Bible, or different contradictions of the gospel, okay? And as we dive into this, I kind of want to just take a moment to do a little study, okay? Nate's going to help me here. I need 4 people that watched the entire Super Bowl. Like come on. No hands go up right away. Like, I know everyone in here watched it. All right, Matt, Wayne. All right, right here. All right, who else we got? Way in the back. All right, come on up. All right, those 4, come on up real quick. All right, hustle it in. All right. This is a football analogy. We should jog it in. All right. I'm going to leave Matt out here. Nate's going to take you guys, and you guys are going to head back. And you're going to have to close your ears. You're going to be in hiding. You're going to come up here with me. Let me know when they're secure, Nate. We're going to do a little study, okay? Just on, everybody watched the same Super Bowl feed, right? There's not multiple feeds. They're all the same, right? And the Super Bowl was what, a month ago? Or 2 months ago? Like, it's not that far removed, right? So let's just see what 4 different perspectives are on the Super Bowl, right? Okay, are they good? Yeah, ears closed. All right. First question. Who played the Super Bowl? Steelers and Packers. Okay. Who won? Please say Steelers, because it would be the loudest boos ever. What was the biggest moment in the game for you? Biggest moment in the game. Yes, 4th down and completion that Roethlisberger threw. Okay. What was the score of the game? Final score? You're a math guy, too, so if you don't remember this, I'm putting the pressure on. I'm doubling down. Don't. Oh, was he mouthing it to you? Okay, all right. You can take a seat. Next one. Send him on out. All right, I've got 4 quick questions about the Super Bowl here, okay? Who played in the Super Bowl this year?
Packers and Steelers.
Okay, who won?
Packers.
Okay, what was the biggest moment of the game?
I would say the Clay Matthews fumble.
The Clay Matthews fumble, okay. What was the score?
I think it was like
38-17. Okay, all right, you can take a seat. Thank you for helping us out. Next one, Nate. Next one. Come on out. Wayne. We're going to test your Super Bowl knowledge. Who played in the Super Bowl, Wayne? Green Bay. And that's all that matters, right? That's all that matters. That's all that matters to Wayne. He said that so confident, like I'm not even going to throw out that other name. Do you know who else played?
Pittsburgh lost.
Okay, Pittsburgh. So I'm not even going to ask you the second question. What was the biggest moment of the game? There were lots, but you got to choose one. The biggest moment for you.
Interception.
The interception touchdown? Okay. And then what was the final score? I'm sure you got one. I know. Do you know the final score? I'm sure you got one of those towels from the Titletown thing that says the score on it. I do too. You don't have a photographic memory. You can't just bring it up. Just guess. Guess the score.
6 points.
Okay, 6 points. Guess the score. 34-27? Okay. All right, that's 7 points. But okay. All right, next. All right, we're going to test your Super Bowl knowledge. Who played in the Super Bowl? Aaron Rodgers? True. Do you want to name the whole roster? No. What two teams played? Packers and the Steelers. Okay, and who won the game? Packers. Okay, and what was the biggest moment of the game? You watched the game. You don't know the biggest moment of the game? Pick a moment. It matters. It matters. Aaron Rodgers held up the Super Bowl trophy. That was the biggest moment of the game. I don't remember that happening during the 60-minute time period. But okay.
It was on TV.
What was the score of the game? Do you remember the score? No. Guess. Guess the score. You don't know? All right. Okay, thank you very much.
I'm gonna have to film it.
It's all right, no. Now, you guys can see that we got some very different information about a game that we all witnessed, right? Now, this is a very terrible analogy, really, but kind of what I'm trying to get across is that in the Bible, as we talk about the Gospels, there's 4 Gospels. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are called the Synoptic Gospels. These 3 Gospels are written in the same form. Actually, we have a graph that we're going to show a little picture of. This is kind of a complicated picture, but let me tell you, it gets way more complicated than this. But this shows kind of the areas that are unique to Mark. You see how 3% of Mark is unique, and then how 20% of Matthew is unique to Matthew, and then how 35% of Luke is unique to Luke. A lot of people, scholars, the commonly held belief, not that it is definitely true, but the commonly held belief is that Mark was written first, and then afterwards, Matthew kind of used Mark as a roadmap, and then after that, Luke probably used Matthew and Mark as a roadmap to lay out theirs. And Luke was a very detail-oriented person, doctor, very educated, so he added in some more details about stories, but also added in new stories. There's certain stories we would not have if it was not for the Gospel of Luke. Certain stories we wouldn't have if it wasn't for Matthew and Mark. And then John's kind of like a whole different roadmap. He didn't even go the same kind of layout as the other 2. So this gets really complicated when we talk about this story, though, and I'm going to just try to make it really simple, and if you have questions, we can talk more about it, and I can get you other resources. We can take that off now. Here's the deal. Mark is communicating a story, right? And Matthew is communicating a story. They're both communicating the same story, but one character thrown into a story can change the entire plot of a story, right? Can change really everything about a story. So as we dive into this, I want you just to stay open-minded, and we're going to explain maybe, just possibly, what some scholars think why Mark didn't include the mother and why Matthew did, okay? And I'm not saying what we're going to share today is the accurate, correct thing. I wasn't there. None of us in here were. All we can do is say, hey, here's what some of the brightest people who have spent their life studying this say, and then we can choose to believe it or choose not to. But as we dive into this story, the main thing we're going to find out is what it means for us but we have to address this part of it as well, okay? So here we go. If you open your Bibles to Matthew 20, and we'll start reading there. Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to Jesus with her sons, and kneeling down, asked a favor of him. "What is it you want?" he asked. She said, "Grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom." "You do not know what you are asking," Jesus said to them. "Can you drink the cup I am going to drink?" "We can," they answered. Now, there's a lot of imagery going on here. Number one, for a woman to approach Jesus in Jewish culture and ask a question like this is really not something you would ever see. For a mother to come on behalf of her sons, this is a pretty bold move. Let's put it that way. She's pretty bold by coming to Jesus this way. Secondly, Jesus says, "Can you drink the cup I'm going to drink?" And this means death. Okay? And they say, "Yeah, we can." Now, do they fully understand it? That's debatable. We don't know. Okay? But this is the backdrop of what's happening. Now, there's some important things. One scholar writes, the Jewish mother, like many other mothers, may have been ambitious for her sons. Now, here's what we need to know. Last week we talked about James and John's father and the family and how they were pretty affluent. They had some clout in the area. They were probably connected to the high priest in some way. And as we look at this story, that's important because here, she might be motivated through this idea that I want my sons to be great in this new kingdom that Jesus is establishing. The disciples up to this point probably still thought the kingdom that Jesus was establishing was literally an earthly kingdom, in the sense that they thought Jesus might be somehow overthrowing Rome, somehow, putting the Jews back into power. This political or this military thing was going to happen somehow, and Jesus was going to be in control. And hey, we want to be at the right and left when that happens, right? And the other thing we have to remember is that James, John, and Peter were the inner three. Jesus was constantly taking these three guys aside, right? Jesus was constantly taking these three guys aside and saying, I'm going to let you guys see this, but the other 9 are going to be kind of left out of this important piece. So all this is happening, and the mother says, well, I think we can ask Jesus if you can be great. Here's what the scholar says, though. The scholar says, the Jewish mother, like many other mothers, may have been ambitious for her sons, but on this occasion, she was nothing more than their spokeswoman. This was James and John's desire. Now look, their mother might have been right on board with that desire, but this was James and John's desire. And here's why we know that. Because in Mark, just a chapter before, Jesus and all the disciples are walking on a road. And they're done walking, and Jesus says, hey, what were you guys arguing about back there? And they're like, well, we were talking about who was going to be the greatest. Which one of us 12 was going to be the greatest? And Jesus then continues to say, well, if you want to be the greatest, if anyone wants to be first, he must be the very last and the servant of all. So this isn't a new conversation that they're having with Jesus, right? They have had this exact conversation. Really nothing different other than the details of we want to sit at your right and your left. They've had the discussion about greatness already as a 12. Here's where it gets interesting. The belief is that James and John are almost trying to manipulate Jesus, okay? In the sense that James and John are like, okay, that's what you had to say to the 12, but remember, we're the special ones. We're the inner circle. So if we come to you privately, and maybe our mother included, we might get a little different answer then, right? And we know how this works, Students know how this works. Mom said no, but let's check with Dad. You know what I mean? Like this isn't something that's not in all of our nature. It happens. And so So the disciples here are asking Jesus, and let's continue on with the story. It says, Jesus said to them, you will indeed drink from my cup, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared by my Father. When the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the two brothers. So when the other 10 disciples hear about James and John's petition to Jesus in private to say, hey, we want to be great. We know what you said back there, but if we come to you in private. And this word indignant means angry. And the Greek translated means they acted on their anger. Now, what that means, we don't know. Could it mean that they acted on their anger and they started cursing each other out? Could it mean that there was literally a fist fight happening? We don't know. But I like to think there was a fist fight happening. And Jesus is just standing there chilling like, all right. But he's like, all right, you guys totally missed it when I talked on the road earlier. And then he sits them down and he continues to talk. And here's what he says. He says, Jesus called them together. Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus takes the disciples' entire worldview and in like 3 sentences flips it upside down. Okay? In 3 sentences, he flips their entire worldview around and says, this idea that you guys think that these high priests, these officials, these people who exercise their authority over you through the power that they have, and you think that's greatness. No. That's weakness. Greatness is when you serve somebody. Greatness is when you step out and literally become a slave to somebody. Now, tell me that is not a relevant message for the church today. Nothing has changed. That is still a message that every one of us need to hear and apply to our lives. This story in the Bible, this story in Matthew 20 is probably one of the most relevant stories in all of the Gospels. I firmly believe that if Jesus came back to church today and walked into the church, this would probably be one of the first things he started saying, really? Really? You guys think that's great? You know what I mean? Like you guys think going to college and getting an education and all this equals greatness? You guys think like having a family and having kids, that equals greatness? You guys think having a home, having this awesome place, that's greatness? You guys think this career that makes you a lot of money, that's great? You guys think, I think you just look at our values and say, really? Did you not read what I talked to my disciples about on 2 occasions? And that I lived out with my life? This is a hard message, though. This is not easy. This is tough. Because we live in a world where we're told, be free, be free, be free, be free. And to be a slave to someone willingly, that's hard. That's really hard. To serve someone when it's hard to serve them, when they keep dropping the ball, that's hard. This is a very, very hard teaching. As we did last week, I want to just take a moment for us to close our eyes and for us just to meditate on some questions, to think through in our life how these questions might affect us. So everybody, eyes closed. The starting question is, what are some ways that we can serve each other, our community, and our world? Just think through in your mind, what are some ways that I can serve the people right next to me, my community of Fox Lake, Waupun, Beaver Dam, Randolph, wherever you're at? What are some ways I can serve my community? What are some ways that I can serve the world? Just think through that for a moment. Where are you serving now? Start to just identify in your mind. Where am I serving now? Who am I literally a slave to at this moment because I want to serve them so much? Now take a moment, just eyes closed, start to visualize these things. Bullet point, however you want to do it, visualize these things. What are some things that you're passionate about and that you're gifted in? Just start listing. What are some things that you are passionate about and you're gifted in? Start listing them in your mind right now. Now, those things that you're thinking about, how could you use those to serve others? All right, open your eyes. These are things that I want you to continue to wrestle with this week. Here's the deal. James and John wanted to be great. They wanted to be known and to be great. And the truth is, when we buy into this Matthew 20:20 principle, when we fully buy into it, that's when we start to get these amazing stories that just make us tingle, right? Like these stories of service that we're like, I can't believe that. That's so amazing. Like the story of Mother Teresa. If that is not Matthew 20:20 lived out, I don't know what is. Like this idea that I'm going to lay my life down. I'm going to be a slave to these people. I'm going to serve these people so much that it doesn't make sense. Because the truth is, the world we live in, if you buy into this, it's not going to make sense to people around you. It's not going to make sense. And here's what I want you to know. I struggle with this just as much as anyone in here. Verlin probably struggles with this. I'm not going to speak for him, but I can almost guarantee you if he was here right now, he would say, I struggle with that too. It is hard to draw a line in the world we live in and say, my life is fully dedicated to service. But that is what Christ says makes a great life. We struggle through life to say, I want to be remembered. You know? Each of us have a date. I don't mean to be morbid, but each of us have a date, and we will die someday. And we spend our life saying, I want my life to have meaning. I want it to mean something. What can I do that gives my life meaning? And then we tend to chase these things that we think will give our life meaning, like power, money, authority, all these things that even the disciples were chasing after. And when we chase after serving people, that's when we really create an amazing legacy. Like Mother Teresa in 100 years, everybody's going to still be talking about Mother Teresa in 100 years. Like she's not going anywhere because her life is like a blueprint for what it means to serve people. Like that's amazing, you know? Now there's some people who serve people and they don't get the coverage that Mother Teresa gets. But their lives are great because the people they served, their lives are so impacted by that. See, Christ knew that when we serve each other, when we become enslaved to each other, that we are fully communicating the gospel through love, right? Like we are fully communicating that Christ is risen and that there is hope in this world when we love somebody who's unlovable, when we serve somebody who's unservable, right? When we serve somebody when it comes at the expense of us being comfortable. This is the gospel. This Matthew 20:20, serving, loving. Right now, the worship band's going to come up. We're going to sing, They'll Know We Are Christians by Our Love. I think this is an amazing song to sing right now as we're talking about this idea of serving. Because when we buy into this and we serve people, we are loving them more than ourselves. And that's a hard thing to do. So let's continue to worship.